We're back like we promised. Greg and I wanted to do a mailbag this week. It's the bye week. We haven't done a mailbag in a while. And I thought it was a good opportunity to do a mailbag. But because everyone was talking so much about Villanova, like we had so many great conversations this week on the show. And we got into so much good, meaty discussion that we didn't get a chance to actually get to the mailbag. So we wanted to honor that and do an individual video here just of the BWI mailbag. So Greg, let's do it. Okay, questions over at the BlueWhiteIllustrated.com message board featured here in the BWI mailbag. Normally when we do this, we have the live chat. We also get some from there, but today, we're going to be featuring these ones and discussing them in depth. Greg, I may have pulled one extra one, by the way, just because I thought it was an interesting conversation point that maybe we talked about a little bit on the show. Okay, so let's get into this one. Condo TX13. May seem crazy to ask, but do you think the offseason discussion around this team, we may have underestimated the impact of replacing Tyler Warren? I'm going to let you go because I'm going to look at this from a different perspective. So I wanted you to I wanted to see what you thought of this first. So replacing Tyler Warren, harder than we thought, underemphasized despite the fact that there were millions of words typed about replacing Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it was underestimated the impact of replacing him. Do I think that Penn State and its fans maybe thought that somebody, and I think if you listen to either Wednesday's BWI live show or James Franklin's news conference talking about wanting that if they have 12 guys who they think they can make special plays, wanting 8 of those a game to the effect of doing more than what the offensive line, the scheme give you time and the opportunity to do. Penn State needs more of those. There's no doubt. Tyler Warren was the guy, and that's probably what we underestimated the most, being a guy that who was going to be the guy, rather, that would replace his ability to have those special plays. And we've seen some. Pena had a touchdown. Rouse had a touchdown. Katron Allen's ripped off a big run. Drew Aller's made some pinpoint throws. He's also made some ones that make you scratch your head. So I think underestimated, no. Is it something that's being talked about a lot in or outside of Penn State communities? I don't sense that it is. Could it be one that comes up, though, if Penn State loses to Oregon? Yeah, of course. So we'll see. Like so many other things about this mailbag segment, about this bye week, about this team, it unfortunately, in so many ways, can boil down to, we'll let you know after the Oregon game.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is, have we underestimated the impact of replacing Tyler Warren? The offense has changed without him. So it's more receiver focused, which they talked about even last year. They would like to do a little more balance. So if you had Tyler Warren plus these receivers, yes, that would be the ideal situation, I think, for the Nittany Lions. Right. So to me, like the plays that are being called are different than the plays that were being called with Tyler Warren on the offense. And so for me, it's hard to really judge on a merit-based, fact-based, stat-based opinion of where that might be. And you mentioned, I think, the major thing, which is broken tackles, yards after catch, which James Franklin said of making special plays outside of what we're going to get you through the scheme or the offensive line. To me, like the biggest difference, Drew Aller's been better in the areas where he would have targeted Tyler Warren, that intermediate 10 to 19. He's been an elite passer in those intermediate zones. Right. And the receivers have been the benefit of that. The problem has been the deep passing game. And honestly, he was not involved in the deep passing game last year. Again, I wrote about the differences in the deep passing game of they've been only seeing cover 3, and why cover 3 is a hard nut to crack, not just for anybody, but especially Drew Aller. Like, it has not been a good fit. It has not been a good fit for the offense trying to work on the deep ball, trying to get Devontae Ross involved, and only seeing coverages that are difficult to throw against deep, and Aller struggles to throw generally. So, to me, it's not that they're missing specifically Tyler Warren in this offense. To me, it's like, what would they be running with Tyler Warren to accentuate what they have now? Because if we were saying run it back with Tyler Warren, then yeah, you've added better, more well-rounded receivers. And to me, like, that's a hard one to answer from a drop Tyler Warren in this offense. Well, then yes, obviously it would be better, right. But you've also changed so much of the offense.
Right. Yep. I'm right there with you. I think, again, It's hard to because what we've seen so far would certainly look different, not just because of his talent, but because he's also on the team, not playing and crushing it for the Colts. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Wave Fruit Farm? It's this great farm market bakery and cafe. You can shop with them either at their farm in Port Matilda or downtown State College.
No way.
Yes, Wave Fruit Farm. They have all sorts of seasonal fruits and veggies.
Way cool.
No, Wave Fruit Farm. But anyway, you should visit their bakery and cafe. They serve amazing food all day.
Way.
Fruit Farm.
Let's get to another question here from RD24. The other day on the show, on Tuesday, Sean Fitz mentioned Drew not anticipating routes and receivers getting open well. Is that something that can be worked on and improved, or is that a mental thing that's on Drew? So when Fitz said that, I had a reaction to I kind of in my head, I jumped. I'm like, is that true? And so there's two conversations here that I think are important to have, Greg, about anticipation and timing in an offense. I think Aller's timing is elite. So a lot of these speed outs he's throwing to the sideline, these comeback routes where they're throwing it underneath the coverage, that takes precise timing from the receivers and the quarterback together. So if we're saying Aller's anticipation of when receivers are going to come open is not good and he doesn't anticipate whatsoever, we can't include that. Now, if we're talking about anticipating where zones come open and fitting a ball in between two players, and this specifically deals with safeties over the middle of the field. And I know that that's become a running joke, but it's a reality that right now they've been throwing the ball outside the numbers and they have not used the middle of the field for whatever reason. Whether Tyler Warren's not there, to the previous question, or whether that's just not, whatever the reason is, that's where a lot of anticipation routes come from, is fitting in between zones when a guy is going to come open. Now, a good example of him throwing with anticipation is the touchdown to Trevor Pena, because he's got to fit that in between the safety and the player in man coverage. But that is a little bit easier because they're both fixed points. He knows where that deep safety is, and he knows where that receiver or that corner is covering the receiver. So as long as the receiver beats that guy, he knows where the window is going to be. It's a little easier against man coverage. So I agree with the anticipation. I'm trying to decide whether I agree with the premise of the question. And there is that final layer of elite quarterbacks threading the needle into tight windows, which he has done before, but not frequently. And I think that is a confidence thing. I think that is he hasn't been asked to do it this year. So I don't know, but I think that it is kind of on the edge of maybe he's not going to learn that while he's at Penn State.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that I just hate to continue to be a broken record here, but I think you're going to feel differently about this question one way or the other based on how the Oregon game goes, fairly or not. You're going to either see it and not worry about this anymore, or you're going to see it in the negative spotlight and be like, okay, this is a problem. So Penn State uses the middle of the field more. If that stuff becomes more, if they stay in rhythm, and look, it's very simple to me. If Penn State's 2-minute offense rhythm carries over to the rest of the game, a lot of this stuff we're talking about with Drew Aller goes out the window. No one's complaining about the 2-minute offense and the way he operates it and the way he makes throws in it because it's worked. And a lot of other times it has not worked, T. Frank. And a lot of other instances of games, that rhythm, that confidence, that quick strike ability just has not carried over. And again, I realize there's a part of that where you're taking stuff off the table to the degree that you know what you're going to run in your 2-minute setup because of time and down and distance, things like that. So I get it. But certainly I think if more Drew Aller 2-minute like drills happen for Penn State at other parts of the game, they don't have to necessarily score in 2 minutes, but more drives like that, more throws like the ones we see on those. And Penn State fans are going to feel a whole heck of a lot better about this team and this offense and Drew Aller than maybe they do right now.
Yeah. And so actually, I want to take back what I said because now looking at the facts, he's 6 of 11 for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns on throws between the numbers over 10 yards. So that's using the middle of the field. Like, they're not avoiding the middle of the field. The anticipation part, Greg, and this is the point I think you're saying too, of like putting guys in position to then catch and run. I don't think we've seen a lot of that. That's, I think, the part of this offense that has not gotten going is throwing into that intermediate zone and then the explosive yards after the catch we saw. And maybe that is where Tyler Warren is missing in this offense, of Allers being good in kind of a precision passing, but not in a precision passing that generates explosive plays down the field. So I don't know. Like that one's a tough one for me in terms of like whether or not he's going to develop that. He's a senior. I think at a certain point he is what he is now as we're into the season.
Right. All right. What's next on our list?
Let's see. Let's go to this one. OC Lion. We talked about this on the show today, Greg. Do we see a significant change in the offensive strategy for the Oregon game? What does that look like? What do you think? Because I'll have a rant here, and I don't want to just take up all the air and oxygen. What do you think about what we maybe haven't seen yet from Penn State in this situation?
Yeah, I prefer to just let you rant on these topics, T. Frank. But I think my biggest thing overall, I think my biggest thing overall is that, again, we go into a lot of these game weeks in the Franklin era and especially the Kotelnicki era, and we just think that there's always this assumption that, well, they've held stuff back. That's why it hasn't worked, and it's just going to work now. And I think there's just a unwillingness to realize that some games are going to present an opportunity for Penn State to use parts of its playbook that they feel will be successful against a particular opponent's scheme, coverage, tendencies, things like that. And some games don't, and they're not going to force the issue necessarily, especially in conference play. And out of season, out of Big Ten play, rather, they can do maybe some things that in a Big Ten week, you're like, yeah, we're not going to put that in, but we want to work on it in the non-con schedule, and we can, so we are going to put it in. And so, different. I think the way this is being discussed is like, well, Andy Kotelnicki has this like back chapter of his playbook that's earmarked for Oregon, and they're going to go back to that and pull all these things out that they did in preseason camp. It's not really the way it works. So look different. Yeah, I think it will. Is it because it's Oregon? No, not necessarily. It's not because it's a whiteout in prime time, top 5 matchup, blah, blah, blah. It's because what Oregon does on defense that Penn State feels like it can exploit that maybe it wasn't able to against its first 3 opponents. Yeah.
So here's a great example. Penn State has seen cover 3. This is in my article from yesterday. Penn State's seen cover 3 50% of the time so far. Cover 3 in its different varieties. And they've been trying to work on the deep passing game, by the way. So like there's right there is kind of a gear grinding conversation about the offense. Oregon plays quarters, meaning 4 deep safeties, which Penn State has been much more successful against generally when it comes to the passing game, especially the deep passing game. They've been more successful against that. So you're going to get different plays against different coverages. If they're expecting to see a different mix of coverages, they're absolutely going to use different plays. The other thing is there are options built into these plays they haven't taken yet. Traver Pena's jet sweeps. Just think anytime he's running into the flat, there are options built into that, whether it has been a tight end, a running back, or even a receiver. Remember Tyler Warren's shovel pass?
Yeah.
Last year, up the middle? It's still in the offense. They just haven't used it yet. They've been paying it to the outside because that's where the read has been. Oregon may take that away, and suddenly Luke Reynolds' shovel pass or Nick Singleton's shovel pass in between the tackles is back in the offense. So there are options within every single play. To begin the year, I said every play for Andy Kotelnicki is its own universe. There are other galaxies and worlds within it. On some of those plays, Aller might even have a running option, which brings us back to the conversation we've had a lot, which is Aller running the football is on the table, where maybe they've been holding that back, not from we don't want Oregon to see it because it's there on film, but the value add of it versus the risk. Even though option situations should not increase the risk dramatically to a quarterback, it does somewhat increase the risk. So I guess those are the opportunities I would say like that we haven't seen that could change based on the opponent, and now like the shackles are off. Everything is on the table to win, in the option game.
Right. Yeah. One thing I'll add here just really quick is that I think what sometimes gets lost in this conversation is like Penn State didn't know what necessarily they play teams with new coaches, with new players. So what do? They go back and watch what those people did last year. Well, Penn State is having that done to itself, right? Like just because Tyler Warren's not here, it doesn't mean that the Oregon staff or the FIU staff or the whoever staff you want to name isn't going back and looking at Penn State from last year and saying, okay, they haven't done this yet, but here's when they did do it. And here's when they could do it to us.
Yep.
And so again, I mean, I think that I just get so hung up on this idea that, again, not to repeat myself, but there's this chapter of the playbook that is like earmarked for Oregon, and those special plays are coming out then. That's not the way it works. To your point, though, some of the way you run your plays may change against that opponent or against any particular opponent based on what their strengths and weaknesses are and what they have on tape this year.
This question here from PSU 7901. We got a lot of PSUs on the Blue White Illustrated message board. You could be one of them, by the way. You can subscribe right now to bluewhiteillustrated.com, and you can get access to our premium content, including the message board thread, where you can ask a question. If we get more questions, we'll do a follow-up article and answer more of your mailbag questions. And by the way, you get a full year of access to The Athletic included. So, this question here, I did not get the fancy graphics made up, but have the linebackers quietly become a strength from a depth standpoint? Greg, this one, I don't actually have a good I have some thoughts, but what do you think?
How do you define depth standpoint? I mean, they're playing three guys and that's it. No, I mean, that's not become a strength. Has the play of Amari Campbell, Tony Rojas, and Dom DeLuca maybe reduced the concerns you had about the lack of depth there? I guess. The problem is if one of them gets hurt, you just don't have a lot of good options. So Alex Tash made his debut in the Villanova game. Dan Connor talked highly of him.
Yep.
Excuse me. Keon Wiley played a good bit in the Villanova game, and we know that he's knocking on the door to more playing time. But I don't think anything's changed from when Jim Knowles said in August that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he trusts three guys at linebacker, and that's it. I mean, he's not going to put guys on the field he doesn't trust. So, no, I don't think it's quietly become a strength. I don't think anything has necessarily changed about that pitcher other than you know what Tony Rojas can do when he's healthy, and you know what Amari Campbell is now that he's 3 games into his time at Penn State following a start to his career at North Carolina. But the depth overall, I don't feel any better about it today than I did in August. And I didn't feel great about it then, and I don't now.
Yeah. I mean, I think the guy that's squarely in the conversation here would be Anthony Specca, because Tash, freshman, I don't want to expect anything out of him at that will linebacker position, where you've already got Dom DeLuca and Dakari Nelson as guys that are on the roster who are older and maybe you would hope would be developing faster than a true freshman. Now, I'm not saying Nelson's in the conversation, but even Keon Wiley's a part of that conversation at the will. So you go to the Mike, where if Dom DeLuca is going to play some snaps, but if you wanted another guy at that Mike position, it would be Anthony Specca. And we have not seen him with the starters. We have not seen him in the meaningful reps of the game. He's been coming in the cleanup duty. And even when we've seen Keon Wiley, they were playing an odd front, which I found fascinating. Like they were doing some multiplicity and some new things on defense against Villanova that got totally buried in the conversation about everything else. And that's not even necessarily like a pure linebacker role. Like he's kind of a hybrid at that position, which maybe is taking some of the thinking about playing the linebacker position off his plate, which would then say, no, probably don't trust him either, but we want to find a way to get him on the field from a linebacker perspective. I think is the clear point here. So good discussion there, Greg. Thank you.
You got it.
All right, so we will be back with the BWI live show tomorrow. Obviously, no post-game show, no tailgate show this week, but we'll have more stuff here from the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Subscribe, all that great stuff. If you would, I know I'm saying it here at the end, and half the people have checked out already, hype the video. If you're watching a video here, not one of our live shows, but one of our videos here, you can hit the hype button, you can hit the like button, and help us get these out into the mainstream for Penn State football fans a little bit more. Always appreciate all the people who help us here with all that stuff. Our subscribers and everyone who watches all of our stuff, thank you so much. You're the best. And hopefully this extra bonus video is our thank you to you with more content conversation here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel.